What we do is we design the batteries, we design the electronics, we build the enclosures, and we market and we service the lithium-ion solution for lift trucks. What we also do is we buy the lithium-ion cells from our vendors in China. And a lot of our competitors are doing exactly that. And we love our suppliers. We love our suppliers. We have a very strong relationship. But we are very, very dependent on that supply coming from China. Very dependent. So we're thinking, you know, are there risks down the road? We think there are risks in terms of stability of that supply, given with everything that happens, you know, geopolitically. And at the pure, you know, economics level, there are risks. So we made this presentation to explore those risks, see, you know, what drives the dominance of a particular country in this industry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the slides showing these comparisons, and then we're going to switch in the second part of the presentation to how do we see it from inside the United States in terms of what can be done, what has been done to address this gap. And you know, maybe we don't need to address this gap, but we certainly see the risk that the gap is just going to be too disruptive to what we do. So in terms of the engineering talent, United States puts out 70,000 engineering graduates, undergrads, per year, whereas China puts out 600,000. But you know, that is driven by the, you know, the sheer size, but also the number per 10,000 of population. United States puts out 2. China clearly has the accent on driving the engineering talent, so they put out 4 for every 10,000 people. So we have the 2020 numbers here. So the global manufacturing, you know, lithium battery capacity was 640 gigawatt hours per year, and whopping 72% of that is controlled by our friends in China. United States is about 9 times behind that, with 8.2% of the global volume of producing lithium-ion batteries. EU is even further behind, even though the population is larger. So what's going to happen in the next 5 years, or right now maybe next 3 years? The projected growth shows us that the gap is going to widen from the current 500 or so gigawatt hours per year to 1,700 gigawatt hours per year. If we're, you know, lagging behind like this, we're going to be lagging even more in the United States. So China is investing, building 1 new plant, let's say, every week. In the United States, we're building one new plant about every 4 months. As you know, lithium batteries are used, you know, everywhere. That's no secret. But we are dealing with forklifts. And so switching to lithium-ion battery technology has allowed to make electrification possible where it was not possible before. For example, we're powering some very intense operations that were possible only with internal combustion engines. This year, we're putting super powerful batteries that power the electric forklifts that run 19 machine hours per day in very harsh environments, lifting very heavy loads. And that's what made lithium-ion possible in our industry. And I assume, you know, by extension that, you know, similar effects happen in other industries where lithium-ion powers further electrification. So what we see in terms of the dominance, that it happens all the way upstream from the battery packs, that's what we make. But then you saw the cell production that happens, you know, 3/4 of it happens in China. But then we see the other parts of the value chain upstream are controlled by some of the Chinese firms. how did China get there? So there are numbers that roughly $60 billion has been spent by the Chinese government in various ways, shapes, and forms to subsidize the lithium battery market, lithium battery production. So those were vehicle subsidies, tax breaks for charging infrastructure, government-sponsored R&D. There are probably some other ways in vehicles how people do it. So the logic is there to continue pushing and subsidize and support transition to electric vehicles and therefore the lithium-ion battery production. So let's see what we have done in terms of other subsidies on the United States side. So the Recovery Act was, what, $763 billion for 10 years? 760, that's 10 times larger than the subsidies that we estimate went to the Chinese battery manufacturers. But the thing is, where did it go? It went 27 billion went to clean energy generation, that's good. 18 billion went to clean vehicles and high-speed trains. 20 billion into energy efficiency upgrades, and only $9 billion went to EV and lithium batteries developments. And even if you read the English publications, like Xinhua in August of 2020, outright saying China needs to consolidate its leading position. You know, I don't understand how you can consolidate beyond 72%, but the drive is there to continue doing that. So that's what we see. So we have, you know, US building new gigafactories. A lot of them are tied to automotive OEMs with some partnerships in, you know, in Asia in terms of bringing the technology in. We, being the small niche market versus the automotive, and when I say we, I mean material handling industry, that means that we're going to continue to be exposed to the supply coming out of China. And when I say about exposure, you know, what are the risks? The risks that we see, that the supply can be disrupted through several different ways. Number one is, you know, there are geopolitical risks. We all heard about the trade war, you know, the tariffs and stuff. So we will just be forced to take whatever the geopolitical situation throws at us. Then the second pressure that we see is that the growing cost of manufacturing the lithium-ion cells is just going to be transferred directly to us. But the price shot up more than, you know, 500%, more than 500% over the past year. So that gets translated into our battery cost. And everybody was saying, oh yeah, lithium is going to get cheaper, it's going to make it easier for transition from lead acid to lithium, and not so quick, because now we're being exactly exposed to this new pricing pressure that we get from our vendors. So in terms of what it costs to build a gigafactory, the rule of thumb is that you need to spend about $1 billion of investment to build a 10 gigawatt hour factory, and Tesla does it a little more efficient, as you see that. The others are pretty much on the mark with $1 billion per 10 gigawatt hours. If we want to close the gap, just in lithium-ion cell and battery manufacturing in the United States, we need to spend $175 billion just building plants. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and frankly, I don't see where it's going to come from. So I think we're going to see continuous gap in terms of production. So we talked to our friends at Department of Energy. So they put together this SWOT analysis, and there's certain things that play for the United States, like abundance of natural resources. We have skilled labor, R&D leadership in terms of technology, and there's some opportunities and that help us to address the weaknesses, but there are outright threats that we see, Department of Energy sees, everybody sees, that are out there. So threat is about the predatory pricing. Domestic cell manufacturers are just not there. And the ones that we see being built, everything is tied to the automotive industry. So we, as I said, we're going to be continuously exposed to the Chinese dominance in lithium-ion cell manufacturing. So there's talks about, any of this is going to come from the U.S. infrastructure bill. Yeah, and we're looking probably a few $100 million are going to come from that infrastructure bill, but that's not nearly enough to help us as the industry to fend off those risks and those threats. We might have the technological leadership, but in terms of the automotive batteries and automotive design and everything, but in terms of material handling, there's very substantial risk that we're going to fall behind. And we already see that, coming in terms of the ready-made forklifts being built and shipped over here, and as I said, the batteries. So, so what is it, that we can do? What is it that we're asking our partners, our competitors, our suppliers, our clients to do? Is to raise the awareness that we are, as an industry, we are exposed to these risks. And whenever you talk to your representatives, whenever you talk to, U.S. government elected officials, whenever you talk to your local officials, whenever you talk to your partners, trading partners, raise the awareness about the issue, that we need to have some more support for local cell manufacturing in the United States. Keep the technology here and protect us from the potential disruptions down the road and maintain the American manufacturing, So that's the extent of the presentation. Thank you for listening, and I'll be happy to answer some questions if you have any.